Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him with pain when you make his life an offering for sin.
Stop there. What does yours say?
Soul. It says soul.
What does yours say?
When you make his soul
Stop
an offering for
there.
sin.
Now it says here.
Yeah.
What does it say there?
Soul, yeah.
Which one is it?
The same.
I know you will know what I.
أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد وانتشت روحي وصار الدمع يجري يا إلهي خذ بقلبي بالرشاد أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما
Okay, let's just start with Isaiah. Now, what I basically suggesting to you is, look, no problem with the belief, but if we look at the evidence and we assess it from what I would consider to be an independent view, we find this, that the verse is telling you he is going to suffer. Verse Isaiah 52 that you read, 13, 14 and onward, it talked about how, and you reiterated it by saying that when these people were being, whipped, okay, it was so bad that it was unrecognizable, the back, as you said. So you were talking physical. The verse is talking physical. Well, in between physical, suddenly it talks about his offspring and his days shall be prolonged. It suddenly switched to spiritual.
Can I read it again?
Why is that a problem?
No, let's take it. I like
I really like your help earlier. I want to kind of keep it to two people, otherwise just get
It's okay.
chaos.
I read this and then I read it.
What are you reading?
Let's take it carefully. It says, yet it is pleased the Lord to bruise him. Okay? He has put him to grief. Now, when you make his soul an offering for sin, now this is somebody dying. Soul offering. So you cut him off to pacify. To kill an animal is to take the animal to send the soul. So he died. Now, the next verse is saying, he shall see his seed. Now, if he has died, and he shall see his seed, that is after resurrection. It's now spirit, not the flesh and blood again.
Yes, I mean the resurrection body issue comes in then. I mean I would say the resurrection body was physical.
When the door was there, it was locked. He entered without opening the door. So he says, spiritual body.
Yeah, I mean Christians had different understandings. I mean, some would say it's still.
Is it spiritual or not? Because if the door locked and somebody entered
I think the way the New Testament normally uses spiritual is as opposed to fleshly, that is sinful. It doesn't necessarily mean not physical. At times Jesus is resurrection, but it doesn't mean physical.
Can you just read the same verse? Just read it. What does it say?
Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him with pain when you make his life an offering for sin.
Stop there. What does yours say?
soul. It says soul.
What does yours say?
When you make his soul,
Stop there. Now it says here. What does it say there?
Soul, yeah.
Which one is it?
The same.
I know you will know what I mean. Okay? Is it the same?
Yes, yes.
I think the Hebrew word could be neither. So they are different
It's the
nuances.
same. They refer life to animal, soul to animal. It's the same, taking the life off.
Yeah, and I mean in old-fashioned English, I mean is that King James? In old-fashioned English, in old-fashioned English, the King James version, soul could be used just to refer to someone's life.
Okay. You see, if I were to take this reasoning forward, and I tell you, Ezekiel, it talks about how the soul that sins it shall die.
Yeah, I would say that is.
Now, if we look at the word soul, is that a living being?
You see, this gentleman, if you have life, you have soul. I'm coming. If you have life, you have a soul. If you die, your soul is dead. So it is not separable.
Right, okay. He says it's not separable, but I would contend to him that Paul has a different view. In 1 Corinthians 15:3, he says, if it is sown a physical body, it is raised a spiritual body.
Yeah,
What is a physical body? Is it a soul?
when you die, your soul ceases.
Exactly. So when he talks about here, and I don't want us to stick on this, but when he talks about here, about him, his life and offering, and he says soul, we would need to definitively know which one it is if we are going to attribute Isaiah 53 as the prophecy for Christ.
Well, as I said, our translations could well be saying the same thing, except that one was written 400 years ago, and English. But I would just add, even if this verse was thoroughly unclear, no one could work out what it meant, that still wouldn't mean that the other 14 and 3/4 verses would fit Christ really nicely. So I don't insist you have to be perfectly crystal clear in every
No, but what I agree with you if we look at it from that perspective. However, I would want to add one element here. You see, if a quarter you said, of 15 verses is not entirely clear, I would suggest to you, okay, if we look at 500 prophecies and 375 are not clear, should we attribute them to Jesus?
If a prophecy is not clear, then no, I would be very reluctant to apply Jesus.
I agree. But now if we look at how prophecy has been understood and misunderstood, also within the context of the Bible, then we would need to know whether when a prophecy is suggesting that it may be Jesus Christ or X or Y, then we would need to make sure that it is so definitive that we can, by definition, exclude any other individual in relation to the prophet.
So I guess I'm saying that Isaiah 53 is specific enough that I would want to apply this to Jesus and no one else. I'm not sure anyone
no problem. And I am saying, well, wait a minute, the problem here is this, that although you are saying there are only 2 verses out of 15 or out of 15 verses there are only a quarter, whichever it is, and I agree with you, Richard. The problem is this, that that quarter, what it is talking about, clearly will by definition, if it is attributed to Jesus, will clearly exclude all the rest of the prophecies.
Why?
Very easy. If the person is going to have his life prolonged, no crucifixion. If I can just...
Sorry.
No crucifixion, because that crucifixion, according to Christian understanding, had to lead to death. But if his life was prolonged, well, he didn't die. And if he saw his seed, he definitely got married, or whichever way you want to look at it. Now, can you see that a quarter of 15 is really a huge issue from the perspective you see. You see, as I'm contending, that look, if it says, he shall prolong his days, and he shall see his offspring. If I were to understand that in a normal context, and according to how the Bible uses the word seed, then according to this prophecy, whoever it is talking about will have survived whatever it is he was supposed to have undergone, and subsequently settled down, got married, and had children. So now that quarter has suddenly become a huge...
If your interpretations were as absolutely clear as you think they are, then I agree that would pose real problems for my interpretation, but I don't think they're that clear. For example, on the seed, I've mentioned before my interpretation, which I think is less plausible, and less natural, but still plausible. You say about Zerah, seed, always being used literally. I'm kind of taking your word on that. I don't know. I'd have to go and check that out before I make
What we will do...
Just carry on a bit more. And we've not talked much about prolonging of days. I don't see any reason why prolonging of days, or making of days, or whatever the Hebrew might be, or increasing, multiplying, whatever the Hebrew nuance is, why that can't be applied to post-resurrection as opposed to something that ever dies. In fact, even putting aside Jesus, I still think the context more clearly suggests this is the person who has died, because he's cut off from the land of the living.
Okay, in that context...
And also if his soul is an offering for sin on his life. In the Old Testament, as you pointed out earlier, the sacrificial animal isn't just punished, it is killed.
Okay.
So I think this servant has to actually die, and then it's described as prolonged.
I entirely agree with you. Not a problem. I entirely agree with you. if one wants to believe it like that, what I would suggest, and I don't mean you personally, generally speaking, if we were to look at the evidence, as I was saying, from an independent perspective, this is what we find. I said that when in Ezekiel it says the soul that sins it shall die. The word soul is relating to a living being, because a living being can commit sin. Can a soul after resurrection commit sin? Thank you. So it's talking about living beings in that context. So when the same word now is applied in a prophecy which may not necessarily be clear, yes, then the convention is that you take the most basic understanding of the word before you apply any other understanding. I wasn't trying to be
sure. I mean, first of all, you are taking one example of Ezekiel, saying that's the basic understanding. Now, I will need to sit down and look at
no problem.
all of the uses of it. I assume the word is reference. I have to look at the meaning of that different places.
I agree, and I'm so appreciative of you being so honest.
Sure.
But
and in terms of the post-resurrection, I mean, I might agree with my brother here. I'm not sure, it's not clear. I am saying that after his resurrection, he was next to the spirit. He did have a body.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. I can agree with that. But here is where the problem lies. You know, where you just said he was spiritual, but he didn't have a body. Okay. Why I say that? You see, the understanding has to be conventional. So, in the context of verse 11, 12, and 13, there is a common verse that is usually discussed amongst Muslims and Christians about whether Jesus was crucified and killed. Yeah? No, Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7. Okay. What does it say there? Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7. Who in the days of his flesh offered up prayers and supplications to him that was able to save him from? And he was heard in that he feared. Now, when he says he was heard, according to conventional understandings of the Bible, what does it mean?
So he was heard in that although he died, he was brought back to life. So the resurrection was kind of a vindication of Jesus. God heard him and answered.
Right, listen to it again. Who in the days of his flesh offered up prayers and supplications? Who in the days of his
flesh?
What does that mean?
So I presume that means pre-crucifixion and resurrection.
When he was alive. Who in the days of his flesh offered up prayers and supplications to him that was able to save him from, who could save him from death? And was heard in that he feared. What does that mean?
He was heard in that he was resurrected.
Right.
It doesn't say. Sorry. It doesn't say that the answering of that prayer took place still during the days of the flesh.
I'm so glad you said that, because you see, it's a matter of interpretation now, isn't it? You see, because if I were to tell you this,
interpreted in the light of the rest of the people.
أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العالمين.